Have you ever noticed that victory begins long before you cross any finish line, and that it's born first in the mind of the person who truly believes? I've spent decades studying human potential, working with thousands of individuals from every walk of life. And I can tell you this with absolute certainty. Most people believe that winning is simply a matter of talent or luck. But they completely miss the fundamental truth that your mind is the real battlefield where victory or defeat is decided. When you enter any challenge carrying doubts, you're already starting at a disadvantage. But when you enter with genuine conviction, half the battle is already won. Now, I want to ask you something that could change everything for you. What battle are you fighting inside your head right now? And are you winning or losing that internal war? Think about it for a moment, and I encourage you to share your answer in the comments below, because your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And while you're thinking about that, if this message is already resonating with you, please subscribe to this channel and give this video a like, because I'm going to share with you the exact strategies that have transformed lives, including my own. And I want to make sure you don't miss a single insight that could be the key to your breakthrough. Your mind works exactly like a garden, and this isn't just some feel-good metaphor. It's a scientific reality that I've witnessed play out in countless lives. When you plant beliefs of possibility, courage, and success, you harvest the energy, persistence, and creativity needed to turn your dreams into reality. But when you plant seeds of doubt, fear, and limitation, you harvest exactly what you'd expect: excuses, procrastination, and eventually the bitter fruit of regret. The principle is devastatingly simple. What you believe becomes the fuel that either powers your efforts toward extraordinary results or drains your energy until you quit before you've even truly begun. Let me tell you about David, a man I worked with several years ago who came to me completely defeated. He had been trying to build his own business for 3 years, and every venture had failed. He sat in my office, shoulders slumped, and said, "Brian, I think I'm just not cut out to be an entrepreneur. Maybe some people have it and some people don't." I looked at him and said, "David, you're absolutely right. If that's what you believe, then you're not cut out for it. Because no one can succeed while carrying the weight of their own disbelief." But here's what happened next that changed everything for David, and it can change everything for you too. I asked him to do something that seemed almost ridiculous at the time. I said, "For the next 30 days, I want you to spend 15 minutes every morning writing down this statement: I'm a successful entrepreneur who creates value for others and builds profitable businesses." I want you to write it 10 times, every single day, and I want you to feel the truth of it as you write. He looked at me like I had lost my mind, but he agreed to try it. 3 weeks into this exercise, something remarkable happened. David called me, and his voice was different, charged with an energy I had never heard from him before. He said, "Brian, I don't know what's happening, but I'm starting to see opportunities everywhere. I'm having ideas I never had before. It's like my brain has been rewired." That's exactly what had happened. By consistently feeding his mind the belief that he was a successful entrepreneur, his subconscious mind began to align his thoughts, actions, and perceptions with that identity. Within 6 months, David had launched a consulting business that was generating more income than his previous job. Within 2 years, he had built a team of 12 people and was serving clients across 3 states. The only thing that changed was his fundamental belief about who he was and what he was capable of achieving. The same knowledge was available to him before. The same opportunities existed in the marketplace. But his mind had been tuned to the frequency of limitation instead of the frequency of possibility. This is the power of what I call mental conditioning. And it's the secret weapon that every high achiever understands, whether they can articulate it or not. Your mind doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's vividly imagined. When you consistently visualize yourself succeeding, when you feel the emotions of achievement, when you see yourself solving problems and creating value, your subconscious mind begins to work 24 hours a day to make those mental images your physical reality. I learned this lesson myself the hard way, many years ago when I was struggling to make ends meet, working dead-end jobs and wondering if I would ever amount to anything significant. I was living paycheck to paycheck, and my confidence was at an all-time low. One day I came across a book that introduced me to the concept of mental programming, and I decided to test it with the skepticism of someone who had been disappointed too many times before. I started with something small, but specific. I was working in sales at the time, barely meeting my quotas, and I decided to program my mind for success in that role. Every morning before work, I would spend 10 minutes visualizing myself as the top salesperson in the company. I would see myself confidently approaching customers, handling objections with skill, closing deals with ease, and receiving recognition from my manager. I felt the pride of achievement, the satisfaction of helping customers find exactly what they needed, and the financial security that came with exceeding my targets. Within the first month, my sales results began to improve noticeably. Within 3 months, I was consistently in the top 3 performers. By the end of the year, I had not only achieved the top sales position, but had broken several company records. The techniques I was using hadn't changed. My product knowledge was the same, and I was calling on the same types of customers. The only difference was that I had programmed my mind for success instead of accepting mediocrity. That experience became the foundation for everything I've accomplished since then, and it's the same principle I've taught to millions of people around the world. Your beliefs create your reality, not the other way around. Most people wait for external circumstances to change before they'll believe in their potential. But successful people understand that you must first change your internal beliefs, and then your external circumstances will inevitably follow. Let me share with you the story of Sarah, a single mother who attended one of my seminars 5 years ago. She was working 2 part-time jobs, struggling to pay rent, and felt trapped in a cycle of financial stress that seemed impossible to break. During the break, she approached me with tears in her eyes and said, "Brian, I want to believe what you're saying, but I look at my bank account, I look at my bills, and I just can't see how positive thinking is going to solve my problems." I understood her frustration completely, because I had once felt exactly the same way. I said, "Sarah, I'm not asking you to ignore your current reality, but I am asking you to stop letting your current reality define your future possibilities. Let me ask you something. If you knew with absolute certainty that you would succeed, what would you do differently?" She thought for a moment and said, "Well, I've always wanted to start a catering business. I'm a great cook, and people always tell me I should do something with that talent, but I don't have the money to start a business." I gave her the same advice I'm going to give you right now. I said, "Sarah, starting a business isn't about having money. It's about having a plan and the unshakable belief that you can execute that plan. Here's what I want you to do. For the next 30 days, spend 15 minutes every morning visualizing your catering business as if it already exists. See yourself preparing beautiful meals, delighting customers, receiving glowing reviews, and depositing healthy checks into your business account. Feel the pride of being your own boss, the satisfaction of building something meaningful, and the security of increasing income." But I didn't stop there, because visualization without action is just daydreaming. I continued. "After you finish visualizing, I want you to spend another 15 minutes planning. Write down one specific action you can take that day to move closer to your catering business, even if it's something as simple as researching business licenses or testing a new recipe. The key is to take action while your mind is programmed for success." Sarah committed to this practice, and the transformation was remarkable to witness. Within the first week, she had researched the requirements for a food service license. Within the second week, she had prepared sample meals for 3 neighbors who all placed orders for the following weekend. By the end of the first month, she had catered her first small event and earned more profit in one evening than she typically made in a week at her part-time jobs. 18 months later, Sarah had quit both of her part-time jobs and was running a thriving catering business that employed 4 people. She had moved into a larger apartment, was contributing to a retirement fund for the first time in her life, and most importantly, she had completely transformed her relationship with what she believed was possible for herself and her future. The difference between Sarah's old life and her new life wasn't education, connections, or even startup capital. The difference was that she had learned to program her mind for success and then take consistent action aligned with that programming. She had discovered what every successful person knows: victory begins in the mind of the person who believes. But let me be very clear about something, because I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm teaching you. Positive thinking alone is not enough. Visualization without action is worthless. Belief without effort is self-deception. What I'm talking about is the powerful combination of mental conditioning and strategic action. And when you master this combination, you become virtually unstoppable in the pursuit of your goals. Think about the greatest athletes in the world. Do they simply show up on game day hoping for the best? Of course not. They spend countless hours training their bodies, studying their opponents, and perfecting their techniques. But the champions, the ones who perform at the highest level when the pressure is greatest, have also trained their minds. They visualize successful performances, they program themselves for peak performance under pressure, and they maintain unwavering belief in their ability to succeed even when facing the toughest competition. Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest basketball player of all time, was famous for his mental preparation. He would visualize making game-winning shots. He would mentally rehearse successful defensive plays, and he programmed his mind to expect victory even in the most challenging circumstances. When asked about his mindset, he once said that he had already won the game in his mind before he ever stepped onto the court. That's the power of mental conditioning combined with relentless preparation and action. The same principle applies to every area of life. If you want to build wealth, you must first see yourself as someone who makes sound financial decisions, creates multiple income streams, and consistently saves and invests for the future. If you want to improve your health, you must first see yourself as someone who values their body, makes nutritious food choices, and prioritizes regular exercise. If you want to build better relationships, you must first see yourself as someone who communicates effectively, shows genuine care for others, and creates positive experiences for the people around you. Here's what I want you to understand about the incredible power of your subconscious mind. It's working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to move you toward whatever you've programmed it to believe about yourself and your future. If you've programmed it with thoughts of limitation, scarcity, and failure, it will work tirelessly to prove those beliefs correct. It will cause you to notice opportunities for disappointment, to focus on reasons why things won't work out, and to take actions that sabotage your own success. But when you deliberately program your subconscious mind with thoughts of possibility, abundance, and success, it becomes your most powerful ally. It will cause you to notice opportunities that others miss, to focus on solutions rather than problems, and to take actions that move you steadily toward your goals, even when you're not consciously thinking about them. Let me tell you about Robert, a man who came to understand this principle in a very dramatic way. Robert was an insurance salesman who had been struggling in his career for nearly 10 years. His income was inconsistent, his confidence was shattered, and he was seriously considering leaving the insurance industry altogether. He had convinced himself that he wasn't cut out for sales, that he didn't have the right personality, and that successful salespeople were just born with talents he would never possess. When Robert attended one of my workshops, He was skeptical about everything I was teaching. During the lunch break, he cornered me and said, "Brian, this mental programming stuff might work for some people, but I'm a logical, analytical person. I need concrete strategies, not wishful thinking." I appreciated his honesty, and I decided to give him a challenge that would prove the power of mental conditioning in terms he could measure and understand. I said, "Robert, you're right to be skeptical, and I respect your analytical approach. So let's run an experiment. For the next 90 days, I want you to do two things every morning. First, spend 10 minutes visualizing yourself as the most successful insurance agent in your office. See yourself confidently presenting policies, easily handling objections, and helping families secure their financial futures. Feel the satisfaction of being genuinely helpful and the pride of earning a substantial income through that help. Second," I continued, "immediately after your visualization, I want you to write down 3 specific actions you will take that day to improve your sales performance. It might be making 5 extra prospecting calls, reading for 30 minutes about insurance products, or practicing your presentation skills. The key is that you take these actions while your mind is programmed for success rather than programmed for struggle." Robert agreed to try the experiment, mainly because he could measure the results objectively through his sales numbers. What happened over the next 90 days surprised even me. In the first month, Robert's sales increased by 40%. In the second month, he achieved the highest monthly sales total of his entire career. By the end of the third month, he had not only become the top performer in his office, but had qualified for his company's annual recognition trip, something he had never even considered possible before. But here's the most interesting part of Robert's story. When I followed up with him 6 months later, I asked him what had been the most important factor in his transformation. I expected him to mention the visualization or the daily action planning. But his answer taught me something profound about how mental conditioning actually works. He said, "Brian, the most amazing thing wasn't just that my sales improved. What really changed was how I felt about myself and my work. Instead of dreading sales calls, I started looking forward to them. Instead of feeling like I was bothering people, I started feeling like I was helping them solve important problems. Instead of focusing on the possibility of rejection, I started focusing on the possibility of making a real difference in someone's life. My whole relationship with my career transformed, and everything else just followed naturally." That's the real power of mental conditioning. It doesn't just change what you do, it changes who you are. It transforms your identity from someone who struggles to someone who succeeds. From someone who sees problems to someone who sees opportunities. From someone who expects disappointment to someone who expects victory. Now, I want to share with you the specific system I've developed over the years for programming your mind for success. This isn't theory or wishful thinking. This is a proven methodology that has been tested by thousands of people in dozens of countries. And it works regardless of your current circumstances, your past experiences, or your natural personality type. The system consists of 4 key components, and each one is essential for creating lasting transformation. The first component is what I call clarity programming. Most people fail to achieve their goals, not because they lack ability, but because they lack clarity about what they actually want to accomplish. They have vague desires like, "I want to be successful," or "I want to be happy," but they haven't defined success or happiness in specific, measurable terms. Before you can program your mind for victory, you must first get crystal clear about what victory looks like for you. This means writing down specific goals with specific deadlines, identifying the exact income you want to earn, the exact type of relationship you want to build, the exact level of health and fitness you want to achieve. Your subconscious mind works best when you give it precise targets to focus on. I learned the importance of clarity during my own early struggles with goal setting. I'd written down that I wanted to be financially successful, and I wondered why nothing seemed to change. Finally, I realized that my goal was meaningless because I hadn't defined what financial success actually meant. Was it earning $50,000 a year? 100,000? A million? Without a specific target, my subconscious mind had nothing concrete to work toward. The moment I rewrote my goal as I will earn $100,000 in personal income within 12 months, everything changed. My mind began to notice opportunities I had been blind to before. I started thinking creatively about ways to increase my value in the marketplace. I began taking actions I would never have considered when my goal was vague and undefined. Within 11 months, I had achieved that specific income target, and I learned firsthand that clarity is power. The second component is what I call emotional programming. It's not enough to intellectually understand what you want to achieve. You must also connect emotionally with your goals in a way that generates the energy and motivation needed to persist through challenges and setbacks. This means regularly visualizing not just the achievement of your goals, but the feelings you'll experience when you achieve them. If your goal is to build a successful business, don't just visualize the business itself. Visualize the pride you'll feel when you make your first major sale, the satisfaction you'll experience when you help your first customer solve a problem, the security you'll enjoy when your business income exceeds your previous job income. Feel these emotions as if they're happening right now, because emotions are the fuel that powers persistent action. I remember working with Lisa, a woman who wanted to lose 60 pounds, but had failed with every diet she had tried. When I asked her to describe her goal, she said, "I want to lose weight so I'll look better." That goal had no emotional power because it was focused on what she didn't want rather than what she did want. I helped her reframe her goal in terms of how she wanted to feel and what she wanted to experience. She rewrote her goal as, "I will achieve my ideal weight of 140 pounds so I can feel confident in any clothing, have the energy to keep up with my children, and enjoy physical activities without feeling self-conscious." Then I had her spend time each day visualizing herself at her ideal weight, feeling the confidence, energy, and joy she associated with that achievement. The emotional connection transformed her entire approach to health and fitness, and she achieved her goal within 8 months. The third component is what I call action programming. This is where most people who understand mental conditioning still fail, because they think positive thoughts and visualize success, but then wait for something magical to happen. Mental programming is not about wishful thinking. It's about programming your mind to recognize opportunities and take the actions that successful people take automatically. Every morning, after you've visualized your goals and connected emotionally with their achievement, you must identify specific actions you will take that day to move closer to those goals. These don't have to be huge actions, but they must be concrete and they must be aligned with the success you've programmed into your mind. If your goal is to start a business, your daily action might be researching your target market, developing a business plan, or networking with potential customers. If your goal is to improve your health, your daily action might be preparing nutritious meals, exercising for 30 minutes, or learning about healthy lifestyle choices. If your goal is to build better relationships, your daily action might be having meaningful conversations, expressing appreciation to people you care about, or developing better communication skills. The key is consistency rather than intensity. Small actions taken consistently while your mind is programmed for success will produce far better results than sporadic bursts of activity driven by temporary motivation. Your subconscious mind learns through repetition, and it begins to automate successful behaviors when you practice them regularly. The fourth component is what I call persistence programming. Every worthwhile goal will involve challenges, setbacks, and obstacles that test your commitment and resolve. Most people give up at the first sign of difficulty because they haven't programmed their minds to expect challenges as a normal part of the success process. Successful people understand that obstacles are not evidence that they're on the wrong path, but rather confirmation that they're pursuing something worthwhile. They program their minds to see setbacks as temporary, to view challenges as opportunities to grow stronger, and to maintain their belief in eventual success, even when current circumstances seem discouraging. I teach people to spend time each week visualizing themselves successfully overcoming obstacles related to their goals. If you're building a business, visualize yourself handling difficult customers with grace, solving unexpected problems with creativity, and maintaining your motivation even when sales are slow. If you're working on health goals, visualize yourself making good choices even when you're stressed, maintaining your exercise routine even when you're busy, and getting back on track quickly after occasional lapses. This type of mental rehearsal prepares you for the inevitable challenges and builds your confidence that you can handle whatever comes your way. When obstacles do arise, instead of being surprised and discouraged, you'll recognize them as situations you've already handled successfully in your mind. Now, let me give you a specific exercise that combines all 4 components of mental programming. I call it the victory visualization process, and I want you to practice it every morning for the next 30 days. Find a quiet place where you won't be interrupted and set aside 20 minutes for this practice. Begin by getting completely clear about one specific goal you want to achieve in the next 3 to 6 months. Write it down in precise, measurable terms with a specific deadline. For example, I will increase my monthly income to $8,000 by December 31st of this year through improved performance in my current role and the development of a part-time consulting practice. Next, close your eyes and spend 5 minutes visualizing the achievement of that goal in vivid detail. See yourself earning that income. Feel the satisfaction and security it provides. Imagine the positive impact it will have on your life and the lives of people you care about. Make the visualization so real that you can feel the emotions of success as if it's happening right now. Then, spend 5 minutes visualizing yourself successfully handling the challenges and obstacles that might arise while pursuing that goal. See yourself maintaining your motivation when progress is slow, finding creative solutions when unexpected problems arise, and persisting with confidence even when others doubt your ability to succeed. Finally, spend 10 minutes planning specific actions you will take that day to move closer to your goal. Write down at least 3 concrete actions and commit to completing them before the day is over. These actions should be things you can accomplish regardless of external circumstances, and they should be directly related to the goal you're pursuing. Practice this process every single morning for 30 days, and I guarantee you will see measurable progress toward your goal. More importantly, you'll experience a fundamental shift in how you think about yourself and what you believe is possible for your future. But let me warn you about something that stops many people from experiencing the full power of mental programming. You're going to encounter resistance, both from your own mind and from other people in your life. Your mind has been conditioned by years of experience to expect certain outcomes, and it will initially resist new programming that conflicts with those expectations. When you start visualizing success and taking action toward ambitious goals, your mind might generate thoughts like, "This won't work for me. I'm not the type of person who achieves big goals," or "I've tried things like this before and they never work." These thoughts are not the truth about your potential. They're simply evidence of old programming that no longer serves you. The way to overcome mental resistance is not to fight these thoughts, but to acknowledge them and then redirect your attention back to your new programming. Say to yourself, "I notice I'm having doubts, and that's normal when I'm creating new patterns. I choose to focus on my vision of success and take the actions that will make it real." You may also encounter resistance from people around you who are uncomfortable with the changes you're making. Some friends and family members might discourage your goals, question your methods, or try to convince you to be more realistic about what you can achieve. This resistance usually comes from their own fears and limitations, not from any genuine concern about your well-being. I learned this lesson early in my own transformation when I shared my goals with a close friend who immediately began listing all the reasons why they wouldn't work. He wasn't trying to hurt me, but he was projecting his own fears and limitations onto my situation. I realized that I needed to be very careful about who I discussed my goals with, and I began sharing my vision only with people who would support and encourage my growth. Here's something crucial I want you to understand about the mental programming process. It's not a one-time event. It's a lifelong practice. Just as you need to exercise regularly to maintain physical fitness, you need to program your mind regularly to maintain mental fitness. The most successful people I know have morning routines that include some form of mental conditioning, whether it's visualization, goal review, affirmations, or meditation. The reason consistent mental programming is so important is that we're constantly bombarded with negative programming from our environment. The news focuses on problems and tragedies. Social media encourages comparison and dissatisfaction. And many of the people we interact with have been conditioned to expect limitation rather than possibility. If you don't deliberately program your mind for success, it will be programmed by default with whatever messages are most prevalent in your environment. That's why most people think small, settle for mediocrity, and accept far less than they're capable of achieving. They've allowed their minds to be programmed by circumstances rather than taking control of the programming process themselves. Let me tell you about Jennifer, a woman who understood this principle and used it to create an extraordinary transformation in her life. When I first met Jennifer, she was working as a receptionist at a small law firm, earning barely enough to cover her basic expenses. She had always dreamed of becoming a lawyer herself, but she had convinced herself that law school was impossible because she couldn't afford the tuition and didn't think she was smart enough to handle the academic rigor. Jennifer's transformation began when she started programming her mind every morning with the vision of herself as a successful attorney. She would visualize herself in a courtroom, confidently presenting arguments and helping clients resolve legal problems. She would feel the pride of having earned her law degree and the satisfaction of building a meaningful career in a field she was passionate about. But Jennifer didn't stop with visualization. Every day after her mental programming session, she would take specific actions aligned with her vision. She began studying for the LSAT during her lunch breaks. She researched law schools that offered evening programs for working students. She started saving money, even if it was only $25 a week, to build a fund for law school expenses. Most importantly, Jennifer began to act like someone who was already on the path to becoming a lawyer. She read legal publications, attended bar association events as a guest, and began networking with attorneys in her area. She started speaking and thinking about her legal career as a certainty rather than just a dream. It took Jennifer 4 years of consistent mental programming and aligned action to achieve her goal, but the transformation was remarkable. She scored in the 95th percentile on the LSAT, received a partial scholarship to law school, and graduated in the top 10% of her class. Today, she's a partner at a successful law firm and regularly speaks to groups about the power of believing in your potential and taking consistent action toward your goals. The most important thing about Jennifer's story is not that she became a lawyer, but that she learned to see herself as someone capable of achieving ambitious goals. That shift in identity has continued to serve her throughout her career, and she's accomplished things that would have been unimaginable when she was working as a receptionist and settling for less than her potential. This brings me to one of the most important concepts I can teach you: the difference between goals and identity. Most people focus on what they want to achieve, but they never change how they see themselves. They set a goal to lose weight, but continue to see themselves as someone who struggles with food choices. They set a goal to earn more money, but continue to see themselves as someone who isn't good with finances. They set a goal to build better relationships, but continue to see themselves as someone who has trouble connecting with others. Goals are external targets, but identity is internal programming. And your identity will always win the internal battle between who you think you are and who you want to become. If you see yourself as someone who struggles, you'll find ways to struggle even when you achieve temporary success. If you see yourself as someone who succeeds, you'll find ways to succeed even when you face temporary setbacks. The secret to lasting transformation is to change your identity first, and then your external results will naturally align with that new identity. Instead of saying, "I want to lose 30 pounds, start saying, "I am someone who takes excellent care of their body." Instead of saying, "I want to earn more money," start saying, "I am someone who creates tremendous value and is compensated accordingly." Instead of saying, "I want better relationships," start saying, "I am someone who brings out the best in others and attracts positive people into my life." When you program your mind with a new identity, you'll automatically begin to think, feel, and act in ways that are consistent with that identity. You won't have to force yourself to make healthy food choices if you truly see yourself as someone who values their health. You won't have to struggle to save money if you truly see yourself as someone who makes wise financial decisions. You won't have to work hard to be kind and supportive if you truly see yourself as someone who cares deeply about others. This is why mental programming is so much more powerful than willpower or motivation. Willpower is exhausting because it requires constant effort to act against your natural inclinations. Motivation is temporary because it depends on external circumstances or emotional states. But identity-based programming works automatically because you're simply being true to who you believe yourself to be. I want to share with you the story of Marcus, a man who used identity programming to overcome one of the most challenging situations I've ever encountered in my coaching practice. Marcus came to me after being laid off from a job he had held for 15 years. At 52 years old, he was convinced that his career was over, that no one would hire someone his age, and that he would have to settle for whatever work he could find just to pay his bills. Marcus had allowed his identity to become completely wrapped up in his previous job title and company affiliation. When those were taken away, he felt like he had lost not just his income, but his entire sense of worth and purpose. He was angry, bitter, and convinced that his best years were behind him. I helped Marcus understand that his job loss, as painful as it was, could actually become the catalyst for the most successful phase of his career if he was willing to use it as an opportunity to reprogram his identity. Instead of seeing himself as a laid-off employee who was too old to compete in the job market, I challenged him to see himself as an experienced professional who had valuable knowledge and skills that companies needed. We worked together to define a new identity for Marcus. I am an expert consultant who helps companies solve complex problems and achieve better results. This wasn't wishful thinking, because Marcus did have 15 years of valuable experience and expertise, but he had never thought of himself in those terms, and he had never considered how he could leverage that experience in new ways. Once Marcus began to program his mind with this new identity, everything changed. Instead of sending out resumes and hoping someone would hire him, he began reaching out to companies and offering to solve specific problems they were facing. Instead of competing with younger candidates for traditional jobs, he began positioning himself as a specialist who could provide expertise that wasn't available elsewhere. Within 6 months, Marcus had built a consulting practice that was generating more income than his previous job. Within 2 years, he had expanded his practice to include 3 associate consultants and was serving clients across multiple industries. Most importantly, he had discovered a level of professional satisfaction and personal fulfillment that he had never experienced as an employee. Marcus's transformation illustrates something I've observed thousands of times. Your current circumstances are not your permanent identity. No matter what challenges you're facing right now, no matter what setbacks you've experienced in the past, you have the power to reprogram your identity and create a completely different future. But this kind of transformation requires more than just positive thinking or casual visualization. It requires what I call total mental commitment, which means aligning your thoughts, emotions, words, and actions with the identity you want to develop. You can't program yourself for success while continuing to think, speak, and act like someone who expects to struggle. If you want to develop the identity of someone who achieves ambitious goals, you must stop making excuses and start making progress. If you want to develop the identity of someone who creates wealth, you must stop complaining about money and start learning about investment and value creation. If you want to develop the identity of someone who has excellent relationships, you must stop focusing on what others do wrong and start focusing on how you can contribute more to the relationships in your life. This level of mental commitment can be challenging at first, especially if you've spent years programming yourself with thoughts of limitation, scarcity, and struggle. But I can promise you this: every day you practice identity-based programming, it becomes easier and more natural. And every day you delay starting this practice, you remain trapped in patterns that don't serve your highest potential. Now, I want to give you a specific challenge that will help you experience the power of identity programming immediately. For the next 7 days, I want you to choose one area of your life where you want to see improvement. And I want you to act consistently with the identity of someone who excels in that area. If you choose health and fitness, spend those 7 days thinking, speaking, and acting like someone who takes excellent care of their body. Make food choices that an extremely healthy person would make. Exercise the way someone committed to fitness would exercise. Get the amount of sleep that someone who prioritizes their health would get. Don't worry about perfection, just focus on consistency with that identity. If you choose financial success, spend those 7 days thinking, speaking, and acting like someone who is excellent with money. Make spending decisions that a financially disciplined person would make. Invest time in learning about wealth building that someone serious about financial success would invest. Look for opportunities to create value that an entrepreneurial person would look for. If you choose relationships, spend those 7 days thinking, speaking, and acting like someone who brings out the best in others. Communicate the way someone with excellent relationship skills would communicate. Show appreciation the way someone who values relationships would show appreciation. Resolve conflicts the way someone committed to healthy relationships would resolve them. Here's what I want you to notice during this 7-day experiment. How does it feel to act consistently with an identity of excellence rather than an identity of struggle or mediocrity? What changes do you notice in your energy, your motivation, and your results? How do other people respond to you differently when you're operating from a different identity? Most people who complete this exercise report that they feel more confident, more capable, and more optimistic about their future after just 7 days. They also report that they accomplish more in those 7 days than they typically accomplish in several weeks, because they're taking actions that are aligned with success rather than actions that are aligned with just getting by. The reason this experiment is so powerful is that it gives you direct, personal experience of what's possible when you align your identity with your aspirations. Once you've felt what it's like to operate from an identity of excellence, it becomes much easier to make that your permanent way of being, rather than just a temporary experiment. But let me be very honest with you about something. Developing a success identity and programming your mind for victory is not a magic pill that will eliminate all challenges from your life. You will still face obstacles, experience setbacks, and encounter people and situations that test your resolve. The difference is that you'll handle these challenges from a position of strength rather than weakness, possibility rather than limitation, and confidence rather than fear. When you truly believe in your ability to succeed, obstacles become puzzles to solve rather than reasons to quit. When you're programmed for victory, setbacks become temporary delays rather than permanent defeats. When you operate from an identity of excellence, other people's doubts become irrelevant because your sense of worth comes from within rather than from external validation. I think about Thomas Edison, who failed more than 10,000 times while developing the electric light bulb. When someone asked him how it felt to fail so many times, he replied, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's the mindset of someone whose identity is aligned with success rather than failure. Edison didn't see those experiments as evidence that he couldn't create electric light. He saw them as valuable information that brought him closer to the solution. He maintained his belief in eventual success, even when current circumstances provided no evidence that success was possible. That's the power of identity-based programming in action. The same principle applies to every area of life. If you program your mind with the identity of someone who builds successful businesses, you won't see failed ventures as evidence that you're not cut out for entrepreneurship. You'll see them as education that prepares you for the business that will succeed. If you program your mind with the identity of someone who creates wealth, you won't see financial setbacks as proof that you're destined to struggle with money. You'll see them as opportunities to develop better financial skills and strategies. If you program your mind with the identity of someone who has excellent relationships, you won't see relationship challenges as evidence that you're unlovable or incompatible with others. You'll see them as opportunities to develop better communication skills and deeper emotional intelligence. This is why mental programming is so much more than just positive thinking or visualization exercises. It's about fundamentally changing how you interpret experiences, how you respond to challenges, and how you see yourself in relation to your goals and dreams. When you change these core elements of your psychology, everything else changes as a natural consequence. Let me share with you one final story that illustrates just how powerful this transformation can be. Several years ago, I received a letter from a woman named Patricia who had attended one of my seminars 3 years earlier. Patricia had been struggling with depression, financial problems, and a sense that her life had no real purpose or direction. She felt stuck in patterns that seemed impossible to change, and she had almost given up hope that things could ever be different. During the seminar, Patricia learned about identity-based programming, and she decided to experiment with seeing herself as someone who could make a positive difference in the world. She had always been compassionate and good at listening to others, but she had never thought of these qualities as the foundation for a meaningful career or significant contribution. Patricia began programming her mind every morning with the identity of someone who helps others heal and grow. She visualized herself as a counselor or coach, supporting people through difficult transitions and helping them discover their own potential for positive change. She felt the satisfaction of making a real difference in people's lives and the fulfillment of doing work that aligned with her deepest values. But Patricia didn't just visualize. She began taking action aligned with her new identity. She volunteered at a crisis helpline, she took courses in counseling and psychology, and she started informal coaching conversations with friends and family members who were going through challenges. Every action she took reinforced her identity as someone who could help others transform their lives. 3 years later, Patricia had not only overcome her own depression and financial struggles, but she had built a successful coaching practice that was helping hundreds of people create positive changes in their lives. She had written a book about overcoming depression. She was speaking at conferences and workshops, And she had become exactly the kind of person she had programmed herself to be during those early morning visualization sessions. But here's the most remarkable part of Patricia's story. In her letter she wrote, "Brian, the most amazing thing isn't that I built a successful business or overcame my personal struggles. The most amazing thing is that I discovered who I really was underneath all the limiting beliefs and negative programming. I realized that the person I became through mental programming wasn't someone new. It was who I had always been inside, just waiting for the right beliefs and actions to set her free." That's the ultimate truth about mental programming. It doesn't create abilities you don't have. It unleashes abilities you've always had but never fully developed. It doesn't give you talents that aren't already within you. It gives you the confidence and clarity to express those talents at their highest level. It doesn't change your fundamental nature. It reveals your true potential and gives you the tools to make that potential your daily reality. Every single person reading this has capabilities they haven't fully explored, talents they haven't fully developed, and potential they haven't fully expressed. The only thing standing between you and the extraordinary life you're capable of creating is the programming in your mind. And that programming can be changed starting today, starting right now, with your very next thought and your very next action. So let me ask you one final question. What will you choose to program into your mind today? Will you continue running the old programs of limitation, doubt, and struggle, or will you begin installing new programs of possibility, confidence, and success? The choice is yours. The power is within you, and the time to begin is now. Take out a piece of paper right now and write down one specific goal you want to achieve in the next 90 days. Make it specific, measurable, and meaningful to you personally. Then write down the identity of the person who would naturally achieve that goal. What would they believe about themselves and their capabilities? How would they think about challenges and opportunities? What actions would they take consistently? Starting tomorrow morning, spend 20 minutes programming your mind with that identity. See yourself as that person, feel what it would feel like to be that person, and then take actions throughout the day that are consistent with that identity. Do this for 90 days, and I guarantee your life will be transformed in ways you can't even imagine right now. Remember, victory begins in the mind of the person who believes. Your beliefs create your reality. Your identity determines your actions, and your actions create your results. When you align all of these elements with your highest aspirations, you become unstoppable in the pursuit of any worthy goal. The power to transform your life is not in your circumstances, your background, your connections, or your resources. The power is in your mind, in your beliefs, in your identity, and in your willingness to take consistent action aligned with the person you want to become. Everything you need to succeed is already within you, waiting to be awakened by the right programming and expressed through the right actions. Don't finish reading this without making a commitment to begin programming your mind for victory. Don't let another day pass without taking at least one action that moves you toward your goals. Don't wait for perfect conditions or complete confidence, because they will never come. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can, and trust that your programmed mind will guide you to opportunities and solutions you can't see from where you stand today. Your extraordinary life is not a distant dream. It's a present possibility. Your greatest achievements are not behind you, they're ahead of you. Your most significant contributions are not in your past, they're in your future. But all of it begins with the decision to program your mind for victory and then take action aligned with that programming. The choice is yours. The power is within you. The time is now. Make today the day you begin programming your mind for the victory that's waiting for you.